denominations are located here in Nashville. But more than that, Dr. Haney, their publishing comes out of here. And so religious publishing and the impact, you can't hardly go to a hotel room in the world and open up a Gideon Bible and see Nashville, formerly Thomas Nelson, Methodist Publishing House, Baptist Publishing House, and the images that they put in the Sunday school material. And so they decide what Moses looks like, what Miriam looks like, and we see that was an entire movement around icons and iconoclasm to pull these images down because of theologically what they reproduce, particularly around images that support white supremacy. And when I say white supremacy, people cringe, and we want to talk about white supremacy not as a deconstructing white people, but deconstructing the brutal 500-year legacy of slavery that continues to show up in unjust systems and structures and institutions like the prison industrial complex that criminalizes black and brown embodied people and poor white people at disproportionate levels.
Very good. And so in a real sense, as a community organizer, it means that you're working in various communities around the city. Why don't you?
Around the state.
Around the state.
Yeah, and so to continue with about this interpreting community. So there's several interpreting communities, right? So we saw in 1960 when Vanderbilt kicked Jim Lawson out for organizing the sit-ins, right? Then there was an interpreting community with American Baptist College, Fisk, Meharry, and Tennessee State University that interpreted scripture very differently, right? And so these are two interpreted communities in the same city, right? And it depends where we are seated, determines where we stand in a lot of issues. So we see these interpreted communities even today, and how do we create a narrative if we are in faith that reclaims, particularly the Christian faith, the life and ministry of Jesus. And we think about that. A lot of theologians call the birth of Jesus the scandal of particularity, to have been conceived by a teenage, unwed, colonized Jew for a mother. We see that in Luke too. So, and to say, how could this person come, and we expect from power, from the empire, and come from the underside and invert every power structure that there is, even 2,000 years later. So we want to reclaim that narrative, because people who are oppressed can identify with the Jesus that comes from Nazareth. Can any good thing come from Nazareth? Because it was such a ghetto. And to say it's no matter where one is born or where they started out in life, that we want to create the opportunities that they can rise to the heights of their abilities. And if that means addressing, we call it social sin, unjust systems, because we want to limit this idea of sin to personal piety, right? But I'm Methodist, so we believe in the outworking of that through this understanding, this social holiness, right? And this holiness shows up in how we live in community together and who is my neighbor. So my work is deeply inspired by my faith.
And so what we'll do, Mr. Caldwell, is to take this final commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll have about 10 minutes, and that will give you an opportunity to bring in additional information that you'd like to deal with, as well as to appeal to whatever people you would like to appeal to this morning in reference to what you're doing. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. About individuals,
former felons, talk about gentrification, man. Housing, affordable housing.
You can see that all around, and you can see that all around, especially over in East Nashville and wherever you go. It's killing a lot of folks.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind talking about Black Lives Matter.
Hey, you can talk about it. That's 10 minutes, you know. Because we've done a show Black with Dr. Lewis Baldwin.
Oh yeah,
Black Lives Matter. Yeah. So yeah, that's
okay.
Or anything else you want to talk about?
Okay.
You know, that's the purpose of this show and all these shows like this.
Okay,
that's great. You don't have anything to talk about, so you let somebody else.
Just let them flow.
I want to talk about it. Yeah, but this is the last 10 minutes, and this is your 10 minutes, and so I can appreciate we've had individuals on this in that seat to talk about all of these.
Yeah,
these issues. Ban the box. As a matter of fact, this is where I became familiar with the idea of ban the box. We did an incarceration show.
Yeah,
and the lady was talking about the difficult problems that folks had after they were released from prison to get a job, and primarily because of the box that they had to indicate their situation in the box, and if your name was in the box, you didn't get any job.
It'd be 30 years later, and you still.
Yeah, so you got a good agenda there. So we want to talk about all those as a community organizer. You might be another Mr. Obama. You know, that's
I tell you what,
and I know that's what I was thinking about. That's what you got to be thinking about. That you know, this is how Obama started.
I went to the White House. During the first administration.
Oh yeah. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Keith Caldwell, and he's giving us some information in reference to religion and faith and religion. And so, Mr. Caldwell, let's pick up where we left off before we had our second commercial break, dealing with religion and faith, or faith and religion, however you wish to pursue it as a community organizer, and some of the issues that you have found to be of importance that our audience ought to know about today.
Yeah, I'd like to direct folks to some of the work done around affordable housing. You know, we're experiencing enormous gentrification here in the city, and it's displacing a lot of folks. There's a group called Open Table, and Open Table works with people who are homeless and people who are threatened to be homeless. We think about there are 200 people a day